Today on the podcast, Cal and I talk to Dave Walstow. Dave is the Associate Director of Creed Comms. We talk about all sorts of things on the podcast this week, including the different levels of production, how and why Creed have adopted video into all their campaigns, and the pros and cons of using actors over real people. Dave, welcome to the studio.
Thank you very much for having me, you guys. First podcast I've ever been part of, so looking forward to it today.
Have you not done an audio one either?
No, never done anything like this. This is like,
exciting.
Virgin. So yeah, looking forward to it.
Nice. Well, a bit of context. So how long have we been working with you? So a year, maybe?
Bet it's been a year.
Yeah.
Maybe just over.
Yeah. So why don't you give us a very sort of brief overview of what Creed do?
Yeah, absolutely. So we're a talent attraction and employer branding advertising agency, I suppose, for lack of a better phrase, helping businesses in the UK, across the world now, with their employer branding and talent attraction challenges.
Cool. And what kind of clients do you guys work with then?
Big and small. So as I mentioned, we've got some, pretty chunky organisations that we're working with. Like,
if you go on your website, there's
some big names on there. I'm trying to
the logos are pretty impressive.
Trying to be humble-ish at the minute. So I guess some of the more well-known ones will be your Lidls of the world, but we work with lots of organisations that you may never have heard of that do some amazing things that actually employ lots and lots of people that you just would never have heard of, and that's why they need a little bit of help sometimes, because they're not a household name. Well, I mean, just jumping straight into it, it's no secret that, looking at your website, it's no secret that you guys do a lot of video. We do. And have obviously adopted video as a means of communicating your clients' messages. Like that is, correct me if I'm wrong, but that seems to be a pretty major part of your offering. I think as video's evolved and as we've evolved what we do, I think you start to realize that video is such a heavily consumed type of content or format now. Why wouldn't you use it in recruitment or to kind of push your employer branding message? So when you're trying to attract a pretty tough to recruit or hard to fill role, or you're a brand that people have never heard of, why not get your message across in a video format? Yeah. Because you can go, a bit behind the curtain. This is what we're actually like to work for. When we're helping a business develop its employer brand, so it's a massive piece of work that we do for organizations. It takes about 6 months. There's various stages, but the big first stage that we kind of undertake is the insight, the research phase, to understand that business. So we'll do surveys and focus groups and speak to their leadership team and look at their competitors, do all this kind of stuff. And within this kind of 2.5 month period, we really get to know that business. We really understand what they're great at and what they should be talking about, and what they're not so great at, and what we should be either avoiding talking about or being really honest about and saying, look, if you're looking for this, we're not the place for you. Yeah, sure. A video is a great way of representing all those things. Yep. So once you get to the end of it and you've come up with your creative and what your brand essence is and your visual style and the actual branding, you place that on a video and you can get across all those propositions and all that kind of sentiment that you've heard and felt, the authenticity, but not in a stilted way. You can do something then quite creative with it. So it's, how do we bring all this stuff we've heard to life in a video format? Taking a step back, how often does a client come to you with a creative that's ready to go, or never. That you just never? Never. I could have answered that for him. Never. And sorry for all clients who might be listening, but no, that's what they're paying us for. Yeah, sure. They're often in a talent attraction department or a people department or a HR department, and they're not necessarily creatively focused. That's just not their roles, and they usually want to be involved in this kind of work but don't have the time to be involved in this kind of work. It's not a priority, it's capacity. And there is a niche kind of skill set to this kind of creative. You're trying to find people, it's recruitment, it's not products or services. Sure. So there's a nuanced difference. And so they'll often go, just feel free to use your partner of choice, in which for our clients is obviously Creed. So no, they never come to us with they'll have a strong opinion when they see the options that you provide. Well, I was going to say, so do you ever just have confidence in one creative and just give them that and say, look, we think this is going to work? Or will you send them like multiple ones and say? It's a great question. I love that question, because we have some competitors in our world that will only go with one. Yeah, sure. And generally our rule has been take minimum of 2, usually 3. We've kind of baked into the cost that you're going to get kind of 3 ideas or 2 further developed.
Right.
So
okay.
depending on which way, but that's all depends on when Liam, our creative director, and his team get the brief. They'll look at it and go, oh, there's so many ideas here. Here's 10 ideas, Dave and team. Let's condense these down to 3.
Right. Okay.
And sometimes it's a case of we've got 2, but they're absolute crackers.
So just go with that.
So just go with them. Yeah. Now, the reason I was smirking when you asked me the question was for the very first time ever, and she's not, maybe won't thank me for saying it, but when we did a video obviously for G4S, and it was how we help get more women into frontline security roles. Alex, who worked on that creative at Creed, she'd got 3 ideas. Opened up the first one. It was that. Insecurity was the concept. And she took me through. I went, that's it. And she
really?
went, do you want to see no, I don't want to see that.
Yeah, right. Okay,
that's perfect. You literally, I've never seen a brief nailed so well.
Right. Okay.
First time, first concept.
Oh, I want to know what the other 2.
Don't want to even see the rest.
I do. Never saw them, obviously.
We've never known that. Yeah.
I did end up having a sneak. I had a sneak peek about a week later, but they were not as good. They were good. They were good, but not as good. Yeah. But they were nowhere near. That one just nailed it. Yeah. So with that client, we didn't take any other versions. We just took that.
That's interesting.
And it did land.
Yeah. That's great.
Because you just know sometimes.
We've started doing that, haven't we, with some of our proposals?
I was going to say it just makes sense, right? Yeah. To give them options. I mean, I guess.
But clients don't ask for that necessarily, do they? Because I'm just thinking of obviously we work with some universities and they don't ask for multiple creatives.
But I think it's sometimes just to do with like experience of.
Yeah.
I know we've done it before where we've kind of been sick and tired of working on the same kind of
stuff. So
it doesn't really work, and like we'll do it because the client wants it, but we know it doesn't work. So like, right, well maybe we just take an idea or 2.
Yeah. The thing with public sector stuff that we've worked on, I think they don't always want something. It's not always true, but like I think they often want something quite safe, and so they'll ask for something safe. And so sometimes we'll give them multiple treatments, and one of them will be the safe option, and one of them will be the one that really we want to do, but is a little bit more, just like creatively interesting.
Yeah.
And it's I can't comment on what the hit rate of that is, but
public sector's tricky for that. Yeah. How do you guys do anything in this kind of realm or this kind of way of thinking? Sometimes we will talk to clients when you haven't quite got a gauge of their level of, I don't mean their individual level of creative, I call it their creative bravery sometimes.
Right, okay,
and sometimes we'll have this conversation internally about it as well. And I'll sometimes say to a client, if we talk in video, say, look, the reality is, where do you want to be on the level of creativity with how we create this video? As in, we can be a 10 out of 10 creative. And I don't mean that that's wacky or going to be, putting your brand into disrepute. It's just going to be a very creative way of expressing that video that will take more, a bigger crew, better equipment over a longer period of time. It'll have a much bigger, deeper concept behind it versus a really quite safe. This might be a talking to camera, B-roll footage, getting across things in a much safer way in your office environment, using your employees. And then you've got a sliding scale of stuff in between.
That's an interesting way of doing it.
And I'll sometimes get them to pick me a number.
Okay. Yeah.
And you can guess which number they normally go with. It's
7. It's going to be 7, surely, of course.
No, I have had some, in all honesty, where they've been really, really honest and gone, we can only be a 3 or a 4.
Yeah, sure. That's something that we should try and introduce.
Yeah,
that's a good shout, isn't it? Do you ever show? Do you ever show them examples to? Because I'm guessing again, we take it for granted that we work in video, so we've got just off the top of our head. If somebody wanted an example video in a certain thing, I know 10, but do you give them examples? Say this is a 10 campaign. This is a 3 campaign.
So we call them hero videos, which is like your conceptual employer branding video, which is how that bit I talked about earlier. How are we going to portray your employer brand in a 60, 75 second showpiece, which can be very creative. So we've done things like this for Jaguar Land Rover.
So it's really top line. It's not for job specific or demographic specific.
This is why Jaguar Land Rover in this instance would be a place for you to consider coming to work. And here are all the great reasons, and also weaving in their corporate consumer brand and all that kind of stuff into it. It's the big showpiece video. It would be what's on your careers website at the top of the page. Then we do TV ads. So increasingly stuff that goes on Sky Ad Smart, programmatic TV, more than anything else, so we can be a little bit more cost effective with how it's used. Then we do the next tier, I suppose, would be the kind of thing like the G4S Women in Security, the one that we're talking about for that rail company, where it's a very specific, we have this role or this need or this particular, so whether it's, we're looking at something at the minute for temporary staff, and what's our proposition for recruiting those, which we need. So that's going in very specifically on we have this need in this one particular area, might be graduates, might be apprentices. How do we hone in on that and make it purposeful just to that audience? So not the company as a whole, the company, but that role.
Quite good.
And then we kind of have interview style videos. So that might be that is a bit more, I work for Creed.
That's more testimonial based.
Testimonial. So that's their supporting videos, which will tend to sit on a careers website or something. And then last of all, we don't do as many of these as I would quite like, but I'm going to call them explainers. We've kind of done, when you come to have your first week's training with our business, this is where you go. This is what to expect. Here's where you'll have your dinner. Here's where you'll be staying.
It's almost like an onboarding video.
All that kind of stuff. So lots of different purposes, but all within the realms of recruitment. So when we did delivery, well, I'll be honest, we did some work for DPD that we're up for an award this week, actually. Our big awards due for best video, so which is quite good. So we're happy about that. But that video, we were able to track what was quite clever with that video. So that was TV, but then cut up into lots of different social media cuts that went across all your usual 6 social media platforms and YouTube pre-roll and all that kind of stuff. And we measured performance pre-video and post-video.
Right.
And the calculations, afterwards were, and that's part of what's gone into this entry, 2 months of that video running, it paid for itself.
Oh, wow.
Because we had to spend that much less on advertising.
Because
the advertising we did hit that much harder. That we didn't need to spend as much on the actual advertising. So
and is that a combination of, obviously it's just a well executed piece of video content, but also that's using AdSmart, is it?
It's using AdSmart, but more than that, it just opened up lots of other channels. Because if you think, we use a programmatic social media provider. So it kind of does the same thing where it goes and says, right, we're looking for these people interested in this kind of role. Here's all the creative. Let your algorithm
and you just
go
feed
find
that
them.
into it.
Feed that in. We give them
right
about
format,
20,
blah, blah, blah,
20 different creatives that are all built to the different sizes. Then it goes and sticks it on your TikToks and your Snapchats and your Facebooks and whatever. And then it starts to, I'm saying it like I'm the machine, but the machine kind of starts to think, right, okay, so we're getting a lot more bites on TikTok with that creative at this time of day to that audience. So serve that a little bit more.
To
that
cool.
And it automatically
does
it.
Oh, that's smart.
And so very quickly, having all those different creatives, different videos, different times of day, different platforms, it works out very quickly where to advertise. So for them, having a great video concept that then takes them back to a landing page with all the videos on it just worked really nicely.
And I guess having all that video content really consistent as well then, if it's all across those things, if it's all bringing you back to the same place, you want it to all look like it's part of the same campaign.
Campaign. It was all this Vandu attitude. And it had all the, and it was, that again was built on research, had a landing page, different versions of that video.
And was that always the intention of doing the main kind of the main concept video and then doing these shorter cut downs for social? That was always the concept, or was that something that was kind of built in after the fact?
Always the way. So it was always going to be so when it was first done, because I'm going back to 2023, we pitched the idea of the Vandu attitude, and they kind of said, right, okay, what do you suggest we do? We said, go with 3 videos to start with.
3 separate scenarios.
3 separate scenarios of how your drivers go the extra mile to deliver to their customers, and the types of traits you need as an owner, somebody who kind of runs their own driving business. Effectively like franchise drivers.
Right?
And so we had extreme versions of what was happening. There was somebody climbing up mountains and delivering to campsites, and there were people that were kind of driving in the middle of nowhere as though they were going towards Glastonbury and singing to themselves in the car. And there were loads of just life on the road and all this, portraying a lot of the things that we'd said that they loved. They all were then staggered in delivery, so it didn't feel like it was the same video being served to the same people all the time. And then this year rolled round and we said, right, well, 2024, we need to update the videos. We're doing Olympics one because it was Olympic year. We'll do a Christmas video. And so again, you can use the same concept, but then bring it into different scenarios.
Got you.
So a good, and I guess that's where I'm going, a good concept will enable video to springboard off it so much more easily.
Who's your like perfect client if you could work with anyone? Literally anyone. I mean, Jaguar Land Rover is a pretty good one.
Do you know what? I'm not going to pick an actual name of a client because...
More like what would you want to do with them?
Yeah, because I think if... I think everybody thinks, and I thought it for a long time, that the perfect client would be like a Coca-Cola or something, because it's what a brand, and surely there's loads of opportunities and stuff. Nowadays, people will say an Amazon or a Google or whatever it might be. But I'll often think those kind of businesses have got such a strong consumer brand. That whilst I'm sure they need to do some work for employer branding and they struggle with certain roles or whatever it might be, that there's such a pull from a kind of consumer brand standpoint that people want to go and work there. It's like there's an ego to it.
Much, right? Okay.
So they probably need to do, if anyone's listening, they'll probably disagree with me, but yeah, they probably need to do a little bit less work than a lot of these businesses. Whereas we're working with almost umbrella companies of well-known brands.
Yeah, sure.
But no one who knows who the umbrella company is. Or they're kind of their fourth or fifth in their sector.
Okay,
so they've got all the work to do.
Yes, sure.
So
Okay.
I can kind of...
You like a challenge, basically.
Let me use Every or Lidl, because I've referenced them already. Or, we'll use those two. They're not Tesco, and they're not, arguably you would say DPD maybe are the market leaders in delivery, but they've got a lot of hard work to do based on, for some of those organisations, it's bad press. Some of them it's just because of where they're pitched in from a consumer positioning standpoint. That has a knock-on effect to people's perceptions of them as an employer. Which are just not true.
Sure.
So our job is to go, right, we've got a repositioning job to do here, and what support do you need? So the best clients, going back to your question, are ones that need their employer brand refreshing, looking at, or kind of either building or refreshing. Careers websites, videos, referral program, anything where there's a creative element where you can really wholesale change their outward and inward appearance to employees. That's the gig.
Got you.
So it's not necessarily the company, it's their challenge, I suppose.
Got you.
So I don't really, in the nicest way, that's why I don't really go in too much with it. We work with these big brand names and stuff, because that's cool in one sense, but very quickly,
bragging rights, but
very quickly it's like that. It's lovely, but it's what we're actually doing with them, because you can have a big name, but if they don't do anything with you, it's
sure.
Little.
No, it's interesting you say that, because I was coming back from a shoot with Lidl yesterday with one of our camera operators, and we were talking about, like, I can't remember what the conversation was actually about, but it was like we were saying, I think the more you work in the industry, big term, but like media, whatever, the more you're into it, the more experience you get. Personally, I get less asked about working with bigger names. Who at the time you'd be like, oh my God, I'm going to work with Nike. That's the one thing I want to do. But if I do a similar concept to, I don't know, a Nike ad you might have seen, but it's for a much smaller sport. Let's just take a sportswear brand for the sake of this conversation. That's way better for me personally now than ever getting to that. And having, like, because I used to work in radio in a past life, so I got to work with or had guests in who were like B, C list celebrities, whatever. That novelty wears off like that.
I can believe it.
Like really quickly. And we're actually just going back, staying in that world, then coming up with a game or some sort of link on a radio show that was like nailed it, and you got like really good interaction. Like that was way better than, I don't know, Bradley from S Club coming in.
And it's job satisfaction, isn't it? Like you've actually and you're seeing a meaningful result from it, kind of thing. Yeah.
Sorry, Bradley. You know, he was a nice guy.
I'm sure he's not listening.
So what's next for Creed?
What is next for Creed? Well, there's you're talking big picture.
Yeah, big picture.
Big picture.
Yeah.
I think in all honesty,
immediately you're up for an award. Obviously,
we're up for an award. We've had another growth year, so it's been a really good year. But I think I'm not being the pessimist, far from. But we're obviously going into what's going to be a fairly tricky year.
Right.
I don't think it's going to be a bad year, but it's going to be a trickier year with. I'm certainly not going to get political on this, but
oh God, here we go.
I'm not going to do it. We can talk about this at the pub. There has been some challenging changes that are going to certainly impact the recruitment sector from a national insurance standpoint, and which has a knock on to hiring, progression and stuff for people. And so while a lot of businesses are trying to look for cost savings this year, which is perfectly understandable, recruitment tends to take a bit of it's the first thing to get hit.
Yeah, sure.
So I think there's a bit of nervousness in the sector. So I guess for Creed, it's without getting too far into it, 'cause I'm not giving away everything, but a big part will be, if clients aren't recruiting, what could they be doing while things are a bit quieter? That might get them ready, set up for success when things pick back up, which they will, obviously, inevitably, and hopefully not that too distant future. So I think video is a great thing for that as well. Because again, it's the kind of thing when you're in the rat race of we need this many people, and we need this many drivers or customer service or whatever it might be, and it's all go, go, go. Sometimes that, let's step back, let's look at the bigger stuff we can do that'll have a bigger impact that might not be immediately bums on seats. Gets pushed to the back. So for us, I think it'll be, are we going to be doing as much of the BAU stuff? It might be a bit quieter for the first kind of half of the financial year, but I'm hoping what lacks there will pick up in kind of video.
Nice. Love it. You mentioned that there's a few questions that you tend to put to your clients in terms of, was it video specifically or like just campaigns that
these are video specific kind of questions that we get asked almost every time we're doing a video, I suppose, or it's something that we need to raise with clients at the beginning.
Okay.
So, probably the most common one is their internal debate or struggle as to whether or not to use their own employees in the videos. Or actors. And
of which we've done both for you, I think.
Done both.
Yeah.
And
pros and cons to both.
So pros and cons to both. And we'll broadly bucket it as use your own employees, it will be more authentic, and it will feel and look a little bit more authentic. But then I would argue if you pick great actors, actresses, that will also feel authentic if you get the right ones, because they won't necessarily feel like they're actors if you've briefed them correctly. Now, our main point that we try and make is, if you've got people comfortable in front of camera who can deliver fairly quickly and don't feel that pressure, and you're not worried about timescales being knocked on, then use your own people. Also need to consider people leave. People don't always leave under great circumstances.
You don't want to have to cut somebody out of a video, which we've been asked to do
we get asked a lot of the times, particularly photo shoots as well. But in videos, it's, this person now no longer works with us. And even if you've signed like a non-disclosure, it's still...
If it's ended on bad terms.
So you have all that kind of side of things. The actors, it's going to cost you a little bit more. They'll nail it pretty much first time. You brief them properly and they'll come across like an employee. But people within your business will know that they don't work for you.
Yeah, sure.
So you've got to give the client, I guess, the kind of choice. I will often say, remember that a lot of these videos are aimed at attraction. Some of them is about retention, but a lot of them are about getting the right people in.
Yeah, sure.
So how much your current people are watching these videos and judging actors, actresses, I don't know. I can be quite, I don't want to be too generalizing, but I think because most of it's outward attraction.
Yes, sure.
That I think they've just got to make the call really as to what they think will work best.
Yeah, we found exactly the same, not just in recruitment videos as well.
Just generally. I mean, like I said before, there's pros and cons. So like there's two specific projects that come to mind that we've done with Creed. So the My Dentist one and the G4S. My Dentist, we used employees. G4S, we used actors. Conceptually, quite different videos. So it worked. The thing that we noticed quite quickly with the My Dentist one, and they were the employees one, they picked really good people to be on camera. So yes, they came across like they worked there because they did. So very different to like actors, you could tell that straight away. But we didn't have to do a lot of coaching, didn't have to do a lot of prep with them. They they'd already been briefed, they already knew what they were doing. They were good. The concept for the video, they didn't have to do much really, so like they were kind of quite comfortable with...
But it was used as a voiceover, wasn't it, their input?
So like and
that wasn't scripted, was it?
No,
it was in their own words,
so they didn't have to learn anything. They got taken to a different room to do the voiceover, so they weren't in front of everyone, and then the thing that they had to do on camera was quite simplistic. So that works really well.
For the end product, it doesn't really matter that person isn't actually an employee. For who's watching it is never going to know, and that's not relevant. So if it's a case of spending a few £100 to get an actor, then sometimes I think it is worth doing. But on the flip side of it, like the Iceland project that we did for you guys,
he was great,
but he wasn't an actor. He was just Mr.
But that's my point. They've like picked someone who's going to be good, and that's like literally 99%.
We were very, very lucky with him. He was fantastic. However, I think we could have used an actor and they would have been really good on camera. And I don't think it would have detracted from like the authenticity of it. However, within that same video, we did kind of piece the cameras with for want of a better word, kind of testimonials from actual staff members. Had they been actors, I think that would have, it would have felt wrong to get an actor to say a testimonial, even if it was the words of an employee who had it's something that doesn't sit quite right. It feels really.
What I really liked about specifically that Iceland one that it's called Matthew, and he was really good at doing that piece of camera, but we were quite reserved beforehand. We were thinking like this could end terribly. We got lucky. He was really good, but the difference between within the same video there was obviously that bit and then the talking head bit. There wasn't too much of a difference between them that was like, oh, he's obviously an actor, and they're obviously you could tell they were all working for Iceland. If we'd gone actor and employees and mixed them, potentially that wouldn't have happened.
Okay, because you might have seen the difference.
As a viewer,
like,
you go,
well,
he's clearly
I think it'd be too obvious. I think mixing them, unless you've got extras, as it were.
So that is a great example. I think moving forward, we will use that as an example video of saying to like our clients, if you've got somebody who can speak like this on camera, we're golden. And don't get me wrong, he didn't do it first time. Like he did a couple of takes, but like
we were quite surprised at how good he was. Though,
he was
right?
pretty
I watched
good
that video back for the because I wasn't close to that one until I saw the cut.
Yeah,
and obviously I think John had worked on it from our side, and he showed me that first cut, and I was like, "Who's this guy?"
Yeah. He was really good.
Is he an actor? It's daunting when it's kind of the camera's just in your face. We had did a testimonial for one of our media partners a couple of months back, and randomly it was like kind of part of a social thing as well, but it was just we've got some cameras set up and we just want to do a bit of a piece on you know the great things about working with one another. But you just stood in the middle of a room. It was like, and there was a bar in the distant background with just people like in the background, and you're just stood there with a camera in your face, being asked ad hoc questions and having to respond. And you didn't
have a script.
No script. So it was great being.
Did you know what the questions were? Or
ish. But it's just you've got two big lights in your face, hooked up to a mic, camera there, and you're like, well, that's quite intense. You can feel for people who don't work in this space that must be really quite intense.
So what were the other questions that you get asked?
Get asked a little bit about AI.
Do you? Okay.
More and more so. So a bit of can we just use AI for video now? Yeah. It'd be interesting to get your take on this as well. I mean, for Liam and I talk about this quite a bit. AI has got a great place for us at the moment in scamping video. So in olden days, you would have your video concept, and then you would physically draw the frames of what was going to happen throughout the video and have maybe the script running underneath it. That in itself is very time consuming and it depends how good your creative team are at drawing as well, but that doesn't necessarily get across what you're actually trying to portray. So by being able to put in all your different prompts into the AI software that we use back in the office, it can really lay the storyboard out really neatly. And then when we're providing that to you guys to say, right, this is our vision of how this is going to pan out. Great. I think the best place we use it now compared to where we've ever done it before is actually in the concepting of the video. So when we're actually trying to, I'm going to call it sell in the video idea, to be able to ask AI to say, right, in frame one, we want it to start with a lady looking into camera that looks like this. Moving to this, we want a stadium. And it maps out the whole kind of picture by picture. And clients can kind of go, I get that.
Yes.
It's not us trying to go, imagine this.
But I think it's just about using AI just seeing it for what it is. It's a tool. It's not going to replace you. It's never going to replace what you guys are doing. No. But if you can kind of lean into it and leverage it and just work smarter, not harder, right? And just use it to, like I say, take what's in here and get it down on paper in the most efficient way possible. And I think it's the same with like, I imagine Con's not here, our editor, but like he probably said the same thing, that more AI gets integrated into the post-production. I think it's just going to say, it's not going to replace a person editing, but it's going to like shortcut the laborious kind of thing. I mean, I guess it's the same with like subtitling, right? On a very basic level, we used to have to transcribe stuff by hand, and now it's just one button.
Suppose it happens on social, doesn't it?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, you have to go in there and like tweak it and stuff, but like only a few years ago, you'd have to transcribe the whole thing. When somebody's asked you to subtitle an hour-long video, we'd literally use subtitling services that you'd send it off and they'd pay, X number of words. That's gone. There's no need for that
and
anymore.
It's a cost saving, it's a time saving.
Exactly,
and
and it allows us to do more creative things.
Yeah.
And that, at the end of the day, is what the clients are paying us for, the creative thing. They're not paying us to push buttons. They're paying us for the creative.
So I think for very quick, short, snappy stuff where it doesn't need much thought.
Yeah, right, okay.
There's a quick way there.
So in essence, it's really all AI is doing in that regard is replacing stock.
It's
video.
replacing stock.
But you can be a bit more specific about what it is.
You can show something a bit more specific, but it should not and will not replace the authentic, purposeful, meaningful stuff that should be linking to your employer brand. I call this quick fix.
Yeah, sure.
Plaster over the cracks, creative.
Yeah, we need
thing.
something now.
Yeah.
There you go. Right.
Yeah.
Cool.
Don't know if I had any others.
No?
Don't think so.
Cool.
Not
Good.
off the top of my head. What's next for COOLBOX?
What is next?
And Creed.
You tell me. Some more briefs, please.
Some more briefs.